Hey guys, tonight we head to ancient Rhodes, sunlit and salty, the kind of place where the sea breeze tastes like old myths and bronze dust. You stand on a wide stone quay, waves slamming rhythmically against the harbour walls, while boats sway on silver, green water. The air vibrates with the quiet electric hum of anticipation. Because tonight, you're here to witness something unbelievable. It's 226 BCE. And you're face with the Colossus of Rhodes, just hours before everything changes. You can practically hear the shipbuilders arguing in the distance, and the clanging of metal on metal echoes from the smithies. Somewhere nearby, a baker sells honeyed bread that smells almost good enough to calm your nerves. Almost. The giant statue towers above you, over 100 feet tall, clad in burnished bronze plates that still glow faintly from the midday sun. It stands at the harbour entrance like a guard that won't move. But you feel something unsettling, even beneath all the awe, because the ground has been shaking lately. And you're definitely too close if that thing decides to crash down. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this one. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where viewers are drifting in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You inch forward through the bustling crowd, marveling at how real it all feels. You notice details on the Colossus that tourists today can only dream of seeing. Tiny hammer marks in the bronze, seams where plates are riveted together, and an unnerving sense that it's still alive somehow. Historians today still debate whether it truly straddled the harbour or stood alongside it. Looking up at this angle, it feels like either one could be right. But what's not up for debate is how proud the Rhodians are tonight. This statue is more than a monument. It's a giant bronze flex in honor of their victory over a sieging army. As you stroll, a fisherman leans over and whispers to you. You know they used old war materials to build it. Melted catapults, shields, maybe a broken spear or two. Like sculpting a god from the weapons he defeated. He laughs, and you smile because it's oddly poetic. You walk past a temple priest mumbling something about Helios, the sun god, being pleased. Rhodes is big on Helios. Practically worships the guy like a celebrity. They built this whole wonder in his honor. But of course, no one mentions the other thing. The warning signs. The tremors. Birds flying away from the island. The uneasy rumbling through your sandals. You feel it too. The narrator voice in your head gives you a wink. Yeah, this statue's not long for this world. You lean against a crate near the harbour wall and think about the engineering. How exactly did they build this? Ancient sources say it took 12 years, and a man named Chairs of Lindos designed it. One of history's first celebrity architects. Some fringe scholars claim the statue was hollow inside, with workers climbing up and down like human ants during construction, hammering plates into place. A few go even weirder, saying the Colossus once played music when the wind blew through its joints, like a giant reed flute. There's zero proof of this, but you kind of hope it's true. Someone nearby mentions that the statue's right hand might have been raised in salute, shielding its eyes as it gazed toward the sea. Others insist it held a torch. You squint. Hard to tell from here. Historians still argue whether ancient writers exaggerated its height. Maybe it wasn't quite as tall as everyone says. But honestly, standing here, feeling your breath hitch as you stare up at towering bronze thighs, you're convinced they weren't exaggerating enough. Then the earth moves. It's subtle at first, just a little tremble under your heels. The fisherman stops mid-sentence. A wave splashes a little higher. A bird screeches overhead. Another tremor, then another. Stone cracks. You whistle softly, and in your best calm bedtime story voice say, "Oh." The crowd ripples with confusion turned fear. Children cry. A priest drops a scroll. You're frozen. Not because you're brave, but because this is the kind of disaster no one prepared you for. The Colossus shifts. One bronze foot sinks a fraction of an inch. A sharp, metallic groan rolls across the harbor. You feel it in your teeth. The statue wobbles. Someone screams the sun god's name. And then, silence. Weirdly soft, like the world is taking a breath. The bronze leg buckles. Plates shear apart. Nails pop out like angry metal grasshoppers. The great Colossus. The pride of Rhodes topples forward in slow, terrifying motion. You backpedal, barely missing a falling chunk the size of a chariot. The sound is pure chaos. Loud, thunderous aching. Dust fills the air like fog. When you open your eyes, the statue lies broken. A massive, bronze corpse stretched along the harbor. One foot still stands. The head is split open. Yet there's an odd beauty in the ruin. Sunlight catching in jagged seams. Shadows draped across twisted limbs. The statue, this wonder of the ancient world, is gone. Just like that. Poof. Instant history. One more reason to never let us build things completely out of bronze. No one speaks for a long, heavy moment. Then a kid says something that makes the adult stiffen. Do we rebuild him? You know the answer before anyone says it. No. The Rhodians believe the gods are angry. They leave the Colossus where he fell. For centuries, unused, unclaimed. Travelers come from far, off lands just to marvel at the wreckage. Some climb the limbs. One man says he can't even wrap his arms around the broken little toe. You wander the wreckage. Run your hand over warm bronze. You think about how ruins can be just as powerful as monuments. How the fall of the Colossus said something about humanity. That no matter how big we build, the world can always shake us down. As twilight fades in, you catch the faint notes of a lyre from somewhere in the city. The air smells faintly of olives and wet stone. You back off before the guards shoo you away. Tomorrow, work begins to clear the harbor, but tonight, you felt the ground quake beneath the wonder of Rhodes, and you're still standing. Careful with that boast. It's a solid conversation starter at ancient parties. The last thing you hear as you leave the harbor is someone murmuring how they once dreamed of climbing into the statue's head. Now, all that's left is a ruin stretching across the shoreline, like a sleeping giant humbled by time itself. You walk away from Rhodes, with dust still clinging to your sandals. The faint echo of broken bronze rattling in your bones. Sleep isn't coming easily now, not after seeing a titan fall. So you wander in that dreamlike borderland of ancient lands until you find yourself in Halicarnassus, modern-day Bodrum. And it's as if you've stepped straight into a royal memorial the size of a small city. It's night, the stars gleaming above like points on a map, and the warm air has the thick scent of resin and sea. The Mediterranean murmurs in the distance. You should probably rest. Instead, you're drawn along a stone esplanade lit by flickering torches. This time, you're not here for a giant statue. You're here for something quieter, more intricate, more eternal. The mausoleum of Halicarnassus rises before you, a massive, tiered monument so perfectly proportioned, it's almost hypnotic. Even in the darkness, you can sense its flawless symmetry, a rectangular base, an array of ionic columns, a stepped pyramid roof topped by a stone chariot pulled by marble horses. Tonight, it gleams faintly in moonlight. There's a reason some once called it the most beautiful tomb ever designed. You pause. Because it's kind of creepy being this close to a grave, famous or not. Especially since the occupant, King Mausolus, is very much still inside. But the architecture pulls you in. The smooth marble walls, polished to mirrored perfection. You swear you see your own reflection staring back at you, widened eyes and all. You wander closer. Sculpted figures, Greek gods, warriors, horses, even lions. decorate the outer frieze. Every detail is crisp, as if carved last week. Mainstream historians agree it was built around 350 BCE for Mausolus, satrap of Caria, by his grieving wife and sister Artemisia II. Yeah, sister and spouse. Ancient dynasties were doing too much. But fringe whispers suggest she didn't just build a tomb. That this place was a coded love letter with clues built into the carvings. Some claim the sculptures hide a secret story of obsession and betrayal. Others just think sculptors got paid by the inch. Wandering around, you can't help but admire how obsessed they were with beauty. Every column perfectly spaced, every statue practically breathing. You tilt your head, trying to imagine how tall it must have stood in daylight. Historians estimate around 45 meters, taller than a modern 14-floor building, and historians still argue whether the stepped pyramid roof was inspired more by Egyptian or local Anatolian styles. You shrug. Honestly, it looks like someone asked for everything cool you've ever seen on one building. You hear footsteps and freeze. A figure approaches. You relax. It's a temple caretaker, cloaked and carrying a copper lantern. He wipes sweat from his brow and murmurs, "She wept for months, you know. Artemisia. Drank her husband's ashes in wine." That's what the poets say. You blink, unsure if he's kidding. He's not. That's actually a real tidbit recorded by ancient biographers. You swallow. Grief is weird. He waves the lantern. "Take a closer look," he says. And you do. You run your fingers over a relief showing warriors locked in battle. The detail is remarkable. Defined muscles, rippling cloaks, tiny shield dents. You stop at a carved face. It has a small chip in the lip. A mistake? Or did someone punch marble centuries ago? You think briefly of Rhodes, the statue, the crash. Here, it's so peaceful. Things are unbroken. But that piece, it's temporary. You sink down on marble steps, feeling the coolness seep into your palms. The world mutters around you, the chirp of insects, distant waves. A calm so complete it makes your eyelids heavy. You lean back and imagine the tomb being built. Imagine cranes made of timber, pulleys squeaking as massive stone blocks rise into place. Sculptors working under lantern light, dust turning their hair ghost white. Imagine Artemisia overseeing it all from a balcony. Mourning, but fiercely determined. Maybe she whispered orders. Maybe she left flowers where they'd be carved into stone. Some say she never finished grieving. That's why the mausoleum stood unfinished for years, details slowly added, as if the love she poured into it kept evolving. There's an open scholarly debate about whether part of the monument was modified or entirely rebuilt decades later, after her death. Some argue the sculptures were added by multiple generations of artisans, not just the original team. Meanwhile, fringe legends insist one part of the monument hid a secret passage or burial chamber beneath. A tunnel said to lead to chests of scrolls and ornaments. But if anyone ever found it, they stayed quiet. You rise, venturing closer to the base. A flicker of torchlight reveals a set of stairs leading up, flanked by carved sphinxes. You take them. Your hand grazes faded inscriptions on the wall. Ancient Greek that translates roughly to, "He lives as long as this stands." You whisper into the night, "Well, about that." Because you know what's coming. Earthquakes again. Those pesky Mediterranean tectonics. Over centuries, tremors will crack the stone. Figures will crumble. By the 1400s, when crusaders arrive, the tomb is mostly ruin. They'll plunder it and use the marble to fortify their castle. The base alone survives. The rest fades into legend, except for the word mausoleum itself, which becomes forever linked with monumental tombs. Kind of poetic. But right here, right now, everything is still standing. You find yourself at the top tier, by the massive marble chariot. Artemis and Mausolus in stone. Looking outward as if judging the whole earth, the chariot driver's eyes seem to track you through the dark. You exhale and sit beside their feet. legs dangling over the ledge. In the flickering torchlight, you wonder how it all must have looked on the day it was finished. Probably dazzling, marble gleaming, a tribute carved in stone and grief. You trace a crack in the stone. It's small, barely visible, but it's there. You lean against the cold marble and close your eyes for a moment. You think about how humans build things to beat time, but time always wins in the end. It's comforting, in a strange way. Like knowing the universe throws curveballs even at kings. From below, you hear voices, footsteps rushing. Something's happening. The earth rumbles. Your stomach drops. That same terrible tremor you felt in Rhodes. Here it is again. But you're too enamored, too soothed by the warm night to run. The quake passes quickly. Just a warning. Just a breath from beneath. Nothing breaks tonight. Not yet. But the mausoleum, like all things, has a timer counting down. You smile as the stars wheel overhead and think, to be buried here, in such serene magnificence, is the ultimate flex. Imagine digging out your eternal Airbnb with a pyramid on top. Ancient kings really went hard. Eventually, you stand and stretch, feeling your muscles protest. You give Mausolus a little salute. Sweet dreams, you whisper. You descend the steps quietly, leaving the sleepy carvings behind. The torches flicker. A breeze rolls in from the sea like a sigh. You walk away, and as you do, you feel the monument at your back, watchful, enormous, doomed. You leave the shimmering ruins of Halicarnassus behind, and the night opens up around you, vast and velvety. Something shifts in the air, a heat you can't explain, a faint scent of burning resin drifting like a warning. You follow it with reluctant curiosity until you arrive in Ephesus, one of the ancient world's bustling trade hubs. The sky still holds the faint dreamlike spoonfulness of dawn, painting things in shades of blue, grey and honeyed gold. And there it is, the Temple of Artemis. It doesn't loom like a pyramid or shock you like the Colossus. No, this one draws you closer with quiet confidence. It's enormous. Yes, bigger than you expected, with over 100 Ionic columns stretching up like marble redwoods into the twilight. Each carved with precision, each painted with pigments long faded in your time, but still vibrant under the flickering torchlight here. You step through tall archways and onto smooth stone floors polished by centuries of feet. You're barefoot. There's something sacred about it. The temple interior is cool and cavernous, though you can tell people are awake. Workers move silently between shrines, brushing ash from statues or carrying garlands of flowers. You've wandered into the calm before daybreak ceremonies. Exiling slowly, you take it all in. The faint glow of oil lamps, the soft echo of sandal swishes on marble, the scent of myrrh incense from hidden alcoves. This, you realize, is no ordinary temple. It's the heart of the city, a spiritual engine, a wonder that once inspired poets to wax dramatic for centuries. Dedicated to Artemis, goddess of the hunt, childbirth, and moonlight. A surprisingly versatile resume, honestly. You approach a shrine carved into an alcove. A statue of Artemis stands behind it, much older than the temple itself. Her face is serene, adorned with a crown of carved animals. Fringe folklore says the statue fell from the sky in some ancient cosmic moment, like a meteor reborn. Most historians say more likely it was local craftsmanship, mixed with imported influences. They still argue whether Romans later embellished her with multiple rows of breasts, symbolizing fertility, or whether that's just another elaborate misinterpretation. Stepping back, you wander deeper. You trace the line of columns to the altar space where priests have stacked offerings. Coins, ribbons, small wooden figures. Someone places a platter of dates and honey on the altar nearby. You're tempted to sneak a taste. Respectfully, of course. You stop before a massive mural lit by torchlight. It shows Artemis standing tall over a forest, her bow poised. Beneath her, a great hunt unfolds. Lions, stags, swans all immortalized mid-motion. You can almost hear the rustle of leaves. The storyteller in you wants to lean in and listen. Your reverie is interrupted by a shuffle of sandals. A priest approaches, hooded, silent except for the jingle of bronze bracelets. He carries a torch in one hand and a small clay pot in the other. His eyes study you for several seconds before he whispers, "You shouldn't be here when the torches move." You raise an eyebrow. The torches move. He nods. This is the hour where secrets travel. Cryptic, but you follow his gesture silently to an exit. You step into the pre-dawn courtyard, still bare-footed on cool marble. Birds are waking. The air has turned strangely warm, uneasy. You glance back, just in time to see hooded figures inside the temple begin to lower torches toward the floor, and suddenly the heat spikes. Smoke crawls up the columns like biting snakes. Flames lick the carved friezes, and you realize, oh, that's not ceremonial, that's arson. A figure moves swiftly through the shadows, hood pulled low, carrying a burning brand. You catch a glimpse of his face, sharp cheekbones, eyes wild with intent. He slips between columns and fires another section of wall. This time, the flame takes hold instantly. Dry wood beams, buried inside marble crackle like tinder. You freeze, stunned, not from terror, but from the weight of realization. You're witnessing one of the biggest historical crimes in antiquity. The night the Temple of Artemis burns. Ancient sources name a man, Herostratus, a glory hound who set fire to the temple on July 21, 356 BCE, just to make his name known. King Alexander the Great would be born the same night, strangely enough. But right now, what you see isn't history. It's happening. And it's horrifying. You pass one statue whose face is glowing orange. Artemis' elderly stone eyes seem to watch the flames creep closer, as if accustomed to such destruction. Your heart pounds. You want to shout, to stop the fire, or tackle the arsonist. But you're just a drifting spirit in this story. Nothing you do matters except watching. A priest yells. Someone hurls a jug of water at a wall. It makes a hissing sound but does nothing. The fire spreads fast, jumping to wooden infrastructure underneath the marble shell. More smoke. More heat. The goddess of the moon is being swallowed by flame. You step back, cough, shield your face. Your skin prickles. Historians still debate how much of the original temple was wooden. How much flammable dimension hid beneath the stone like a secret bargain. You watch one small roof beam collapse and almost laugh in disbelief at how something so colossal could be undone by one person with a spark. You back out of the courtyard, stepping through scatterings of ash. The fire roars behind you. Sparks and embers fly upward, catching on the breeze, scattering like fireflies gone rogue. City guards run past. Others appear with buckets. You know what's coming. None of this will work. You find yourself outside the temple gates, watching from afar with a nightmarish sense of detachment. It burns. It really burns. It's a surreal sight, even beautiful, in a tragic, terrible way. Columns glow like molten gold in the firelight. Friezes crackle and pop with tiny fire. Bursts like ancient applause. One person behind you mutters, "Maybe the gods abandoned it. That's why it burns." Someone else counters, "No, it's because we failed them." Your tired brain is somewhere in between those two. But the storyteller in you whispers wonders always fall. It's almost their whole deal. And like Halicarnassus and Rhodes before, this one dies too. The flames devour every sacred carving, every whispered prayer, except one thing, its legacy. People will rebuild parts of it. Historians will write, debate, exaggerate. Today's archaeologists will still be digging up pieces of it, squinting at fragments like cosmic puzzles. The sky above lightens. The fire fades. The temple stands, just barely. Singed columns rise from blackened ash, a survivor gasping in the ruins, like a statue refused to bow. You watch it smolder. You smell the musk of destruction. Yet in the rising sun, it almost looks new again. You turn away, brushing ash from your arms. A stray spark lands on your shoulder, and you flick it away, gently like a prayer. Once again you walk. No need to run. This wonder has already left its imprint. You think of Artemis, from the hunt and moonlight to flame. It's ironic, you know, burning a goddess's temple with fire, one of the oldest human tools. You smile a little. Probably inappropriate, but humans are weird. Wonders are weird. History is weirder. As dawn settles into a hazy, golden morning, you trudge away from the smoldering remains of Artemis, once mighty temple. Your sandals are still warm from the scorched marble. You smell something earthy. Wet soil, flowering vines, and before you know it, your surroundings bloom into a lush, impossibly green dream. This isn't Greece. This isn't anywhere you've walked before. You blink and realize you're in Babylon. Not the dusty, sun-baked version we've all seen in history books, but the framed, magnified version, the one spoken of in whispers, the one described in ancient texts with equal parts awe and ambiguity. The hanging gardens. Except, you're not quite sure if you're dreaming. The air is warm, but misty. Everywhere you look, vines spill over terraces. Waterfalls trickle down stone staircases. Flowers as bright as jewels bow gently in the breeze. Birds chirp lazily, settling on carved balustrades. The courtyard below is filled with palms, date trees, even fig vines curling around marble pillars like lazy serpents. You feel like you've just stepped into a botanical fever dream. You wander up a staircase that curls alongside an artificial waterfall. These stones are massive, ton-weight bricks held together by what looks like tar or pitch. The closer you look, the more you sense the engineering behind this place. It's not just a garden, it's a miracle of hydraulics. Water flows upward here, against gravity. Ancient texts claim this was done with some early form of screw pump or endless chain, dragging water from the Euphrates River below. You hear voices nearby, high, babbling voices. Peeking over a railing, you spot children splashing near what looks like a garden pool. Above them, a woman in richly dyed robes watches from her terrace. Some stories say this wonder was built by Nebuchadnezzar II for his homesick wife, Ametis, who missed the mountain greenery of her homeland. Historians still argue whether it was really a love gift or just a display of obscene wealth. But here, in the thick green warmth, it feels personal. As you ascend, you spot workers tending to shrubs, watering flowering shrubs with bronze cans, trimming pomegranate trees that stretch tall and fruity against sunlit arches. You follow a stone path lit with soft lanterns into a shaded space, where a shallow pool reflects the hanging canopy above. The smell of jasmine is thick enough you could almost taste it. You pause, your feet wet from stepping on water-soaked tile. A gardener glances over. He laughs softly. "You're not from here," he says, wiping his brow with a woven cloth. "But you like plants. That's plain." You grin. Guess it's obvious. He gestures toward a carved stone basin nearby. You lean in. Streams of water trickle into it through tiny spouts, so fine and regular they almost hum. He continues. "There's a hidden chamber below us, a great wheel powered by slaves and animals. Turn the wheel, the water lifts. Not magic." He winks. "Just engineering." That's your mainstream history fact right there. But as he walks away, he adds another detail under his breath. "Some say the roots of these trees keep secrets buried deep." Scrolls. Treasures. Messages from the rivers. Fringe tidbit. Check. You hang back near a column draped in creeping ivy and let the buzz of this place fill you. It's a garden and a palace and a symphony. The sound of water everywhere. The glint of sunshine on leaves. Somewhere far below you hear music. A reed flute, maybe? Or distant laughter. It's all so soothing. Almost meditative. You lie back on a stone bench, letting your mind drift. And as the garden hums around you, you notice something sort of off. Tiny cracks in the stone. Moss growing in places it shouldn't. A faint tremor you feel through your shoulders. It hits you. The whole place feels like it's trying to hold its breath. Like it knows its glory might not last forever. You sit up and start to wonder. Could this place have really existed like this? Historians still argue whether the Hanging Gardens ever existed at all. Like, maybe they were actually in Nineveh. Or just in someone's heroic imagination, scribbling after too many palm wines. You'd roll your eyes if you weren't literally sitting in a mossy daydream wonderland right now, listening to water fall in perfect rhythm. In the distance, you spot a towering wall of mud brick, the outer structure of the palace, ziggurat-sized, huge. Babylon itself isn't small time. Somewhere beyond those walls is the Ishtar Gate and the Lion of Babylon. But here, everything is softness. Green, a sanctuary in the haze. You wander again. This time to a large terrace fringe with flowering vines, so thick they move with the breeze like living curtains. People gather under the shade. One man recites a poem, From lands of stone and sand you rise, where walls touch sky and dreams surprise. You lean in. They sound familiar. Words written on ancient shards later found in the desert. Poetry praising the gardens. Part truth, part myth, part self-promotion. You let yourself drift again. This time, you imagine what it must have been like to be here, day after day. This wasn't just a decorative wonder. It was survival disguised as luxury. A way to cool off in a furnace-like city. To show that humans could control nature, bend it upward. Literally. You hear a rumble from below. A low vibration. Maybe just distant machinery. Or maybe, you think with a twitch of humor, Babylon's hungry tummy. You chuckle. Joke, Fay 1. Still half asleep. But you pause. Because that rumble doesn't fade. It rolls up through the roots beneath you. The pools ripple. The ivy nearby shivers in a breeze that doesn't exist. The gardeners look up. A vase falls and breaks. Birds fly upward in panic. The earth shakes again. You grip the edge of a nearby pillar. Somewhere, water bursts through a crack. A stone groans in protest. You see a palm tree lean. No, no, no. Someone shouts. A man grabs a child and runs. This is it. The beginning of the end. You stumble back as part of the terrace collapses. Water gushes from beneath. You're nearly knocked over by a wave of spray. A marble planter splits in two. Vines dangle, roots torn up like stringy yarn. But the wonder doesn't fall in one dramatic swoop. It's slow. Cruel. A little more of the garden tilts. Bricks grind. One corner of a courtyard floods over. You catch yourself in the midst of chaos and pause. So much for unbreakable engineering. You jump back, using a railing to steady yourself as another tremor hits. The sound is like a groaning beast. And suddenly, just like that, it passes. The shaking stops. The water settles. Workers stand stunned. A woman nearby sobs. You look around. It's not destroyed. Not yet. But something has cracked deep this time. Something that won't be fixed. Time, again, has taken another slice of this marvel's lifespan. It might take decades. It might take centuries. But the Hanging Gardens won't outlast their own weight. You make your way back down, wading, almost, through wet granite. You turn one last time, and see it, not crumbled, not gone, still incredibly alive, but marked, creaking, maybe even ready to fade from history. Maybe that's why so many argue it never existed, because it left no clear trace. As if its creators purposely made something too beautiful to last. You brush soil from your hands and step away, heart a little heavier. Nature was conquered here once, but she always gets the last laugh. You wander through the sandy haze of Babylon, until the red sun dips low enough to flirt with the horizon. The lingering humidity fades into the kind of dusky calm that mutes sound and dips everything in gold, mauve twilight. The ground beneath your feet finally feels stable, after the trembling echoes of the garden's collapse, and you find yourself walking toward a new kind of silence, one punctuated only by cicadas and the occasional lazy croak of a frog. You smell it before you see it, a mix of pine, resin, damp marble, and the faint, salty tang of the sea breeze again. You instinctively slow your pace. Something huge is watching you. When you look up, your breath catches. There he sits. The statue of Zeus at Olympia. Not just a statue, no. A cosmic apparition carved in ivory and gold, towering over the entire, sanctified sanctuary like a silent giant. Your eyes travel up, slowly, reverently, along huge, glistening robes the color of pearl and sunlight. Zeus reclines on a carved throne of cedar wood inlaid with ebony, ivory, and gemstones. His feet rest on a footstool painted with reliefs of dancing mythic figures. His left hand holds a glittering scepter, topped with a figure of the eagle. His right hand, a statue of Nike, Victory. So lifelike she looks like she might spring out of that palm and fly through the air. You feel tiny, insignificant. It's the closest you've come to feeling like one of the mortals in an epic poem. Trembling under the gaze of a god who could sneeze and turn you to vapor. You step onto polished marble tiles, immediately softened by century-old rugs. A quiet hollow echo seems to seep from the walls and ceiling, dome-shaped and arching up, impossibly high. Every surface here is carved, painted, or inlaid with stories. Gods and heroes in vivid color, their myths woven into the room like a frescoed tapestry. A priest slips past you, holding a silver censer that releases coils of fragrant smoke. The air is thick with it, scented, sacred. You close your eyes briefly and just inhale. Everything feels ancient, timeless. Then you open your eyes. Zeus stares down at you, eyes made of precious stones, frozen in a knowing half-smile. It's unsettling. You swear he could blink at any second. You hear a whisper, someone describing the artistry. Around 435 BCE, a sculptor named Phidias built this. Same guy who worked on the Parthenon in Athens. Mainstream fact says the Zeus statue was made of chryselephantine, wooden core, covered in ivory for the flesh and gold for the robes. Some fringe theories claim the throne was mechanically rigged to make Zeus appear to move or speak, like ancient animatronics. Could you imagine Zeus leaning in and asking softly, "You here for a good time?" You chuckle quietly. That's joke one, maybe two. Hard to keep track. Some murmur nearby. Two historians. Okay, roleplay historians, argue softly. It was 12 meters tall. No, 13. The temple roof would have caved if he stood up. On purpose! Why build a god that can't leave his own home? They keep going. You smile to yourself. Historians still argue whether the statue of Zeus was meant to convey divine stillness or boastful intimidation. You know the answer. Probably both. Humans have always loved a 2-for-1. You sit on one of the polished benches, letting the cool stones seep through your clothes. You feel watched, but not in a threatening way. More evaluated, like Zeus is waiting for you to make a move. And then you hear it. Faint thunder in the distance. The kind that rolls slow and confident, promising rain. You snort softly. Dramatic much. That's joke 3. But the thunder grows closer, louder. The temple floor vibrates. You see a globule of wax fall off a candle. A red, garbed acolyte rushes to shield a scroll from falling ash. And then overhead, a flash of lightning tears through the sky outside, bright and electric. The accompanying boom shakes the building again. A few worshippers gasp. Others fall to their knees. The story goes that one day, similar lightning struck and scorched part of the statue's base. To many, this was a sign Zeus had decided he'd been honored enough, that he was done being admired, or confined. You tilt your head. Could a god leave like that? Maybe. But you've seen what happens to wonders. They fall, they crumble, they burn. Over time, souvenir hunters come. Ivory cracks, gold peels away. Fire consumes what's left. Historians debate whether this statue was shipped to Constantinople before its final destruction. Some say it was lost in a fire there. No proof. Just whispers and ash. For now, though, it's magnificent, untouched. and it watches you with eyes that glow faintly in the flickering torchlight. You lean your head back, close your eyes, and listen to the temple's quiet hymn. It's like the walls hum with protective sound. You drift briefly, until your body reminds you that stone benches are not cloud cushions. Eventually you rise and walk forward, something pulling you closer to Zeus's feet. You pause. The footstool's carvings depict mythic creatures. Gorgons, chimeras, things that slither in nightmares. You reach out reflexively and stop just short of touching it. Respect. Yeah, but mostly because you have a feeling those temple guards could tackle you in seconds. You pull back and laugh quietly at yourself as you whisper a silent thought to the statue. You've seen empires fall, storms rage, and people try to outbuild the gods. Must get boring after a few centuries. You walk back toward the temple doors. The storm outside has passed, leaving a soft rumble behind it, like Zeus humming his approval. The sun peers down now, cutting through one of the high windows and illuminating his wide, carved eyes. Just for a second, they flicker. You don't look back. You just smile. The marble beneath your feet feels warm, charged with something ancient. You walk out, blinking into daylight. The temple looms behind you, quiet now. The statue waits, eternally patient. Perhaps for the next visitor. Perhaps for time itself. Outside, the sky clears. Birds play tag in updrafts. You're already thinking about where you go next. You rub your arms, still tingling. You follow a dusty coastal road southward now, walking until the humming undercurrent of temple worship fades completely. The sky stretches out in an endless canvas of blue. Somewhere behind you, the storm that bleached the horizon over Olympia finally releases itself in patches of rain. You can smell it faintly on the wind. Ozone laced with pine. But here, the air has changed. It smells like brine, hot stone, and something else. Something metallic. You arrive just as the sea breeze intensifies, pushing salty gusts that lick at your face. The landscape here is rugged, interrupted by towering limestone cliffs that plunge into the sparkling Mediterranean. Once again, rumor finds its way to your ears. Stories say this region was once illuminated by a light so bright sailors saw it from miles offshore, even on cloudy days. There's no sign yet of that glow. Just the shimmering blue sea, and a few seagulls screaming at each other over some abandoned fishing gear. But you know you're close. Your steps slow as you take it in, pebbles crunch under your sandals. Wait, when did you start wearing sandals? Wonders work in mysterious ways. The harbour town of Ostia unfolds ahead, a mosaic of old stone foundations and partial reconstructions. Between them, modern benches and Tor Segnage attempt to explain the past with neat graphics and polite text. You smile. You prefer your history messy. Thank you very much. You pause near a miniature lighthouse display. A plaque reads, "Based on accounts of the Lighthouse of Alexandria." You lean in, reading about the marvel once known as the Pharaohs, a word that would become synonymous with any beacon for centuries. And then the scene around you begins to shift. The sea grows darker. The wind becomes sharper. You blink, and you are no longer in this small reconstructed town. You are standing at the edge of a massive stone port, Alexandria, Egypt's ancient jewel. The Pharos rises before you, impossibly tall. For a moment, you stop breathing. It hits you like a dream you weren't sure you remembered correctly. There's something surreal about seeing light in daylight. It's daytime, yet the very top of the lighthouse glows. An enormous flame fueled by oil, reflected by polished bronze mirrors that focus its rays like a laser into the throats of distant waves. 3 tiers tower above you. The base, square and fortress-like, with sturdy windows suggesting storage rooms or living quarters. The middle tier octagonal. Different, stylish even. The roof slopes inward slightly as it rises, and then the cylindrical pinnacle, the light chamber itself. Above that, the statue of Poseidon, or maybe Helios, depending on whose retelling you trust. You squint up at him, gazing down at you as if to say, "Good luck surviving this climb." Friendly encouragement. You start toward the entrance. Guards wave you in. Apparently you look like you know where you're going. You give a subtle nod, channeling confident traveler energy. Inside, the air is cooler. You feel as though you've stepped into the belly of some ancient mechanical beast. You start climbing. Stone stairs spiral around the interior walls. Tight, steep, endless. You keep one hand against the wall, steadying yourself. Torches flicker every half, turn or so. The air smells like soot and salt. You wonder how many coils it would take to reach the flame. You lose count around floor 6. Somewhere after the binge-worthy stair marathon, you reach a midpoint landing. A window opens here, showing the clear expanse of sea. You watch for a minute. The ships look like toys. A voice echoes behind you, calm, academic. It is said this lighthouse could shine up to 300 feet in height, and the light was visible from over 30 miles away. You turn. A guide holds a scroll, reciting details as if he's memorized them. Mainstream fact built around 280 BCE, during the reign of Ptolemy Her. Fringe tidbit. Some say the mirrors could be repositioned to ignite enemy ships. Like a solar death beam. You grin. That's one heck of a nautical. Nope. His voice fades behind you as you continue your ascent. A soft shrilling sound tickles your ears. Wind sliding through narrow slits in the walls. It feels almost musical, like a giant, eerie flute. You pause, listening. It's strangely beautiful, some say. Well, more like whisper in sidebars. That those sounds weren't accidental. That the architects purposefully designed the interior tubes to create disorienting tones, like a warning to the gods that humans were reaching too high. Historians still argue whether the sounds were purposeful or just an engineering quirk. You whisper, "I think it's spooky on purpose." That's joke 1, maybe 1.5. When you finally reach the light chamber, sweat beads along your hairline. The heat is intense, like standing beside a bonfire someone turned up to. Dragons would approve. Fire urns roar inside a circular enclosure. Glass panels control airflow. You step carefully, feeling the floor vibrate with power. Behind you, a giant polished bronze mirror gleams, bent like the lens of some enormous telescope. This mirror is what throws the light across leagues of sea, offering safe passage to ships or, depending on who's telling the story, threatening them like blasts from a mythic beast. You inch closer. You feel a warmth that's less physical and more spiritual. Here you are, standing in the literal center between earth and heavens, fire and sea. You drag a fingertip across the rim of the control railing, feeling ancient grooves. You try to speak but falter. Who are you to talk here? And then you blink. You're back at sea level. The lighthouse looms above, muted now in the bright afternoon sun. You feel your heart still pounding from the climb that never happened, but absolutely did. You take a seat by the docks. A few local workers haul nets. One looks at you and gestures toward an old stone block embedded in the sand. "From the furrows," he says. You realize you're tracing fragments. You muse aloud. "Earthquakes took it, right?" He nods. "2 big ones. 13th century. Then people used the stones to build a fortress." "Of course they did." You linger, watching waves slap against marble chunks that once held up the greatest beacon ever built. Just as you're about to stand, a cart rolls past. On it, a carved relief of a goddess. Nike again. You think back to Zeus's statue. You realize how often humans carved victory into their monuments. Maybe these wonders weren't just about worship or practicality. Maybe they were reminders. To themselves. You walk away from the dock, feeling the hard, packed sand give way to grit and pebble again. The light from the Pharos has been extinguished for centuries, but in your mind, you watch its flicker long after sunset. Somewhere on the wind, you hear faint laughter, Poseidon's, Helios. Maybe just your imagination. The air grows dense again, but this time there's a warmth to it. A humid, sticky warmth that coats your skin and clings like hands that don't want to let go. You've wandered inland, across a landscape of broken columns and overgrown paths. Tall grasses whisper against your legs, wrapping around your boots like welcoming vines. Soon, you hear it, the low hum of crowded streets. A different hum than quiet temples or silent ruins. A bustling, lively swarm of sounds. Your pace picks up as the greenery thins, and suddenly you find yourself stepping onto polished limestone roads, reflecting sunlight like a giant's mirror. Welcome to Ephesus. You feel it instantly. This ancient city hums with commerce, wit, and that particular strain of Greek pride known as, "Everybody will definitely hear about this." You sniff. Is that sesame oil? Grilled fish? Jasmine? You look up. There, set just beyond the crowded agora, a colossal structure rises above everything else. It almost doesn't belong here. Towering over the rooftops like a jewel among clay pots, the Temple of Artemis. Massive marble columns, over 100 of them once, reach skyward in glittering rows. They've got that proud. We made this. Look, the Greeks perfected around the 5th century BCE. You step closer, dodging merchants and dodging glances from suspicious goats. You slip into the shadows of the columns, and all conversation seems to fade. Inside is a coolness the outside heat can't touch. Columns stretch high enough that you suddenly feel like an ant, craning your neck upward. The space goes on, echoes drifting into the ceiling like whispered secrets. She watches you from the far end. Artemis, goddess of the hunt, wild things, and young women who don't have time for nonsense. Her statue shines faintly. Dark stone embedded with what's left of gold filigree. She's striking, wearing several rows of strange globes across her chest. Some say they represent breasts. Others say bull testicles. Others, well, you don't want to ask. Historians still argue whether she was worshipped as a fertility goddess or a patron of wild independence. Personally, you think she could press all the other gods, and not break a bead of divine sweat. Your feet echo softly as you approach. It smells of incense, beeswax, and the faint metallic tang of old coin. People come here not just to worship, but to do business. It's like a holy shopping mall. You whisper, "Artemis invented retail therapy." That's joke one. A priestess glides past, her ankles wrapped in bronze bands, the sound like tiny cymbals chiming gently. She whispers something about the temple's height, over 60 feet. Then she lowers her voice, conspiratorial. Once every 4 years, they light offerings so high the flames reach half that height. You pause. Fringe tidbit unlocked. Some believe the burning of sacred offerings here was visible from the port. Like the lighthouse and temple, competed for attention. You run your fingers along a fluted column, feeling ridges worn smooth in places. The marble glitters with mica. You wonder if it always sparkled like that, or whether time has polished it. A tour of whispered facts begins in your mind. Built around 550 BCE, burned down once, famously, by a man named Herostratus, just to become famous. You shake your head. Talk about toxic clout chasing. Joke 2. The temple was rebuilt even bigger. One of the few wonders actually rebuilt. You find that comforting. Like ancient builders had emotional resilience before it was cool. But as your hand trails over the stone, you sense something different. Echoes of destruction. You blink. The walls crumble around you. The pillars collapse in slow motion fountain, like cascades of dust and rumble. You see soldiers, hear iron clash, feel heat against your back. The air buzzes, then shifts. The wreckage is replaced by swampy silence. You stalk through waste, high grass covering what's left of the foundations. Now it's centuries later. The marsh has swallowed everything except one column. A lone solitary shaft rising from stagnant water. Birds perch on top of it like it's their private high rise. You stare. You whisper to no one. Pliny saw it whole. I get stalks. But eventually, you convict yourself back into fantasy. You close your eyes and picture it as it once was, columns gleaming, crowds whispering prayers for safe hunts and healthy births. When you open your eyes, you're back. The temple hums around you again. A woman selling small clay figurines calls out to you, "Take home Artemis. Good luck." You smile, hand her a coin. You tuck the little statue in your bag. It feels warm. Not like it's cursed warm, more like welcome home warm. You take one last look at Artemis. You can't help admiring her. This synthesis of light, strength, and total, "I don't need Zeus's permission to exist," energy. You bow slightly. Whisper your thanks. For the journey, the glimpse, and possibly the stamina to make it up all those lighthouse stairs earlier. The wind picks up as you exit the temple, sweeping up fallen leaves. Someone's playing a lyre in the street. Kids chase each other with toy spears. This city breathes, even in ruin, even in memory. You walk back to the edge of the city, where the ruins meet Earth's patient embrace. You turn your gaze to the sky. Clouds drag lazily across blue. Heat radiates off the stone around you. You sigh. Your feet carry you away from the temple ruins, across dusty limestone and wild thyme that brushes your ankles with its herbal softness. The sweet smell lingers, comforting and just a little bit dizzying after the charged atmosphere of Artemis's domain. Cicadas sing out in the heat as you walk, louder now, more insistent, like they're gossiping about you under the shade of cracked olive trees. You follow an old road that slopes steadily upward. The air changes again, grows cooler, sharper. Birds overhead wheel in great circles. The ground beneath you becomes paved with weathered basalt stones. Deep grooves scar the stone where cartwheels once wore them down over hundreds of years. You pace slowly, pressing your fingers along the stone-cut lines, perfectly measured, impeccably aligned. You're entering Halicarnassus. The wind picks up, blowing fine sand in glittering swirls across the road. Your eyes squint against the glare, but the view directly ahead holds you mesmerized. The mausoleum of Halicarnassus, one of the strangest wonders, and the only one named after a mortal, is still distant, but already immense. You close your eyes briefly and replay what you knelt around 350 BCE, commissioned by Artemisia Tipi for her husband, Mausolus. The guy must have been adored. Or she was really into grand architectural flexes. Probably both. You walk closer. The mausoleum seems to get more complicated the nearer you draw. First you see the base. A platform with stepped terraces, broad and rectangular. Its walls gleam faintly, once covered in vivid reliefs of centaurs, gods, and mortals locked in perpetual battles. The steps themselves are wide enough to sit on, which explains the children perched along them, tossing pomegranate seeds and making up stories. The wind shifts again, and now you see it, the colonnade. Tall ionic columns circle the structure, slender and disciplined, holding a roof like a marble diadem. You count 10 on one side, so probably around 36 in total. Each column's capital is meticulously carved, frankly, too ornate for a guy named Mausolus. Above that, you see a pyramid-like roof, tapering upward until it reaches a massive stone quadriga. 4 horses drawing a chariot. In the chariot, 2 figures. You step closer. The sculpted forms shimmer. Mausolus stands confidently, hand raised in eternal salute. Beside him, Artemisia, calm-eyed, crowned with ivy and dignity. You imagine a spectral wind rustling her stone dress. You murmur, "Relationship goals, though maybe skip the part where I build a skyscraper tomb for my wife." That's joke 1. You're warming up. Soft murmurs reach your ears. A guide stands near the platform, telling small groups how some historians believe the mausoleum was painted. Bright reds, blues, golds. Nothing like the monochrome stone we imagine. Fringe tidbit unlocked. Some say the sculptures were pulsed with bronze veins to shimmer in sunlight. Historians still argue whether the building's roof was ever damaged before its final collapse in earthquakes. But you know how it ends. Time is always the last wave. You climb the steps, drawn closer. The mausoleum's interior feels cooler than it should. You sense a subtle shift in echo in space. You walk past reliefs of Amazons locked in battle, past vivid depictions of lions pouncing, gods leaning lazily over mortals. Each carving seems like it's telling a different version of immortality. Not through power, but through story. You let your hand drift along the wall, tracing faded grooves and ancient cracks. Then you blink. The ceiling above collapses in slow motion. Columns tilt. Stone buckles under tremors that ripple through centuries of silent visitors. You pull back. It's just air again. But in that moment, you felt the faintest echo of seismic rage. You stand alone at the heart of the mausoleum. Sunlight filters down from above. Maybe through a broken roof. Maybe through imagined ceiling glass. You gaze around at what feels like an indoor-outdoor space. A courtyard of remembrance. Your shoulders relax. This place isn't just grand. It's deeply, strangely personal. Unlike the towering temples dedicated to gods, this one is dedicated to grief, obsession, and love. You take a breath. You close your eyes. And for a second, you feel something warm in your hand. You look down. It's a piece of stone, carved but weathered smooth by time. Too small to be from the original tomb, but maybe enough for a story. You tuck it away. Then you hear a faint whisper, a voice soft, accented lilting. I could not let him be forgotten. You turn. Nobody there? You smile. Artemisia. Of course. You walk out of the mausoleum, back into the light. The wind carries dust across the ruins. You see archaeologists kneeling over fragments. One of them straightens and shouts to another. Found a chip of painted plaster! You grin. Something new every day. You give one last look to the quadriga figures above. They stare out eternally. Stone lovers in frozen motion, forever entombed in a building that shaped the word mausoleum. You stretch. It's time. You turn back to the path. Ahead, mountains cast long shadows across crumbling stones. You start walking, feeling dust settle on your shoulders. The sky reddens with late afternoon sun. The sun hangs low on the horizon now, burning orange through a smear of late afternoon clouds. You leave Halicarnassus behind, your steps carrying you westward, along a winding coastal path. The sea slips out of view as you move inland, the landscape turning harsher, more rugged. The air is drier, threaded with dust and faint traces of sage. Near dusk, you crest a hill, and then you see it. A sweeping valley sprawls before you, dotted with farms, orchards, and clusters of clay, roofed houses. Yet it's the horizon that holds you still, where a colossal figure stands guard over the harbour. The Colossus of Rhodes. There he is, a bronzed titan towering over everything else, gleaming even in this fading light. You stare, jaw slack. He stands with one foot planted on each side of the harbour entrance. Or so the legends often say. But here, you see him clearly. Massive feet grounded on a sturdy stone. No legs spanning water, more like a watchtower than a giant straddling the sea. Still, your brain struggles to comprehend him. Nearly 100 feet tall, towering over ships, casting a shadow longer than an entire town square. Bronze plates cover him like shimmering scales. Beneath them lies iron bracing. You picture ancient sculptors hammering and casting each piece, pausing every hour to wipe sweat and squint at the near, divine structure taking shape. Around you, workers haul barrels and nets, completely unbothered by the presence of a metal god towering over their heads. Beyond the harbour, fishermen's boats bob lazily in the water, coloured by the blood-orange sun, like a painting with no ending. You walk slowly toward the statue's massive base. It's ringed with broken stone, partially excavated. Modern scaffolding supports weathered bronze where engineers have tried to reconstruct or stabilize pieces. You hear someone mutter something about lost rivets and structural stress. You shake your head and whisper. Even wonders need maintenance. Imagine the ancient Yelp reviews joke 1. A plaque nearby outlines the basics. Built around 280 BCE, constructed to celebrate Rhodes's victory over an invading army. The sculptor. Chairs of Lindos. Finished in 12 years. You pause. Years. One guess at how many times someone said, "Are we done yet?" A nearby tour guide recites a fringe tidbit. Some historians believe the Colossus was hollow, filled with ramps that workers used to travel inside during construction, and possibly for maintenance. You picture it. A bronze skyscraper with internal staircases. Maintenance workers stuck inside for days, eating olives and complaining about all the echo. Then you hear it. A shrieking metallic groan. Your heart leaps. You spin just in time to see the great statue tremble, shift. The distant crack of something enormous giving way echoes across the water. Just the imagination. Or something worse. A whisper rumbles along the harbor. Earthquake. You remember the stories. Only 56 years after it was built, the Colossus collapsed in a massive quake. Broke at the knees, fell in pieces, lay spread across the ground for nearly a millennium. You see it now as if you're living it. Bronze shatters, stone buckles, a groaning, thunderous cry echoes across the harbor. He falls. The statue breaks, not like a sculpture, but like a dying deity. People run. Screams fill the air. Dust coats the skyline. The valley trembles. The ground breathes. You cover your head. Then, silence. You open your eyes. You're standing amidst scattered fragments. A giant bronze foot lies nearby, cracked open like a hollow eggshell. Beyond, a broken hand rests palm, up in the dirt, fingers bent around nothing now. The head lies farther away, half sunken into the earth. A face flat against stone, forever staring at the sky it once surveyed. A boy climbs onto it, giggling. His mother yells. He laughs harder. Kids will always find the playground in the wreckage. You wonder how many people stood here and thought, if this can break, what chance do we have? Then you blink and time resets again. The Colossus is restored, towering anew, sun striking its face in gold. And beneath its torch, bearing arm, you see ships passing through, their hulls painted, sails snapping. It's a silent partnership, the sea and the statue. Yet the thought hangs with you. This statue is a celebration built by humans, but it also represents vulnerability. A reminder that even the largest monuments can fall in a moment. The sea always wins eventually. So does the earth. You find a quiet spot near the harbor, sit on a half-buried stone, and watch the tide crawl along the dock. A group of merchants barter nearby. You hear whispers in different tongues. Phoenician, Greek, something like Aramaic. Everyone here comes from somewhere else. You whisper, "I've seen gods fall, statues crumble, wonders burn, but people still here. Still arguing about taxes," joke 2. It lands. The breeze arrives just in time, sending a soft shiver through your clothes. You stand, brushing sand from your knees. The sun has nearly set, its last streaks of light turning the bronze surface of the Colossus rosy and alive. You take one more look at the giant. You think about the legacy, how even in ruin, this structure inspired centuries of builders, how every statue on a high plinth owes something to this broken bronze ancestor. How, even toppled, it was a wonder so revered that ancient travelers paid to see the wreckage. Not all wonders survive, few do. But their echoes, those linger. In stories, in inspiration, in feelings people can't quite name, when they stare up at something massive and say, "Wow." Night creeps in, soft and silver, cooler than the harsh Mediterranean sun that watched you all afternoon. Stars begin to blink awake in the deepening velvet of the sky, and you see your path glow faintly under the moon's embrace. You rub your eyes. You're not sure how much farther you've walked, but your feet carry you instinctively, as if they already know the next wonder, woven into tonight's quiet tapestry. You follow a dusty trail lined with half-buried buried stone fragments, chunks of decorated friezes, column drums, fallen capitals. Even in this dim light, you sense grandeur in the brokenness. It's subtle but lingering, like a party long finished but still echoing with laughter. When you walk over a shallow rise, your breath catches. Before you, in a gentle valley lit by moonlight, lies a marble city, silent, enormous, incomplete. The remains of the great theatre of Ephesus stretch out in front of you, like a giant stone bowl, carved into the earth, rising in rows upon rows of curved seating. But this isn't the wonder you're here for. No, the theatre just guards the horizon. Just beyond it, you see the remains of what once stood taller than everything else. Here, the Library of Celsus. You descend the slope slowly, careful not to roll an ankle on the ancient rubble. Your feet silently track the worn stones, and when you finally reach the square before the library, you stop, eyes wide, mouth slightly agape. Even in ruin, the facade is stunning. 4 pairs of marble columns stand in perfect symmetry. Each pair frames a tall window, or doorway, some clinging to arches. Crowning pediments perch above them, some broken, some missing, like constellations torn from their sky. Wise statues stand in the niches between columns, female figures, each representing one of the library's virtues: Sophia's wisdom, Arete excellence, Anoia's thought, and episteme knowledge. That's your mainstream fact. The Library of Celsus was built around 120 CE, dedicated to the deceased Roman consul Tiberius Julius Celsus Polymaenus, who's buried beneath its floor, a building for books and bodies. Weird combo. You approach hand brushing along cool stone. Even now, you can feel the vibrations of ancient scholars, murmuring thoughts, scrolls rustling like leaves, in a forgotten hurricane of philosophy. You step through what remains of the entrance. You imagine ornate wooden shelves, once lining the walls, stretching from floor to high ceilings. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of scrolls. Inside, you picture a hushed atmosphere, young scholars paced around here, heads bent, breathing in the scent of olive oil lamps and parchment. But now, there's only you and the sky. The moon's rays slip through fractured stone and empty niches, turning the interior into a glowing skeleton of what once was. A strange beauty. Quiet, thoughtful. You whisper, "This is what knowledge looks like after 1,000 years. It's still trying to speak." That's joke 1. A little melancholy tonight. You walk deeper inside. A fragment of mosaic crunches underfoot, still clinging to its patterns despite time and weather. You kneel and trace it, blues and greens whirling together like tiny pieces of fallen sky. Someone whispers behind you. You turn. A man in a white robe stands nearby, holding a scroll in one hand, a lit oil lamp in the other. He smiles. He walks toward a broken bookcase, opens the scroll, and reads silently. His lips move. You lean forward instinctively. But the words are just out of reach, sounding like a language you once knew but forgot. You blink. He's gone. You inhale sharply. Dust filters in your lungs. You swallow. You get back up. A group of tourists might show up soon. You start hearing faint laughter from another direction. No, not laughter. Voices. Arguing. 2 scholars. Modern ones, you assume. One says, "It wasn't just a library. This place was a tomb. Celsus is literally buried here." The other scoffs. "I know. But does an ancient tomb, library prove anything about Roman ideas of death?" Fringe tidbit unlocked. Some claim the layout was meant as a symbolic journey, from life through knowledge toward eternity. Historians still argue whether the design implies Celsus' thought of knowledge as a path to immortality. You murmur, "I'd have settled for an audiobook." Joke 2. But your gaze travels upward again, and the jawline of the structure becomes all you see. The layered columns, the shattered arches, that ghostly, half-rebuilt front looking halfway between dream and ruin. It strikes you, suddenly, that this is the true power of wonders. They give people something to argue about long after they no longer exist. You walk into what used to be the reading room. Its high walls still cling to faint carvings. You look up into the collapsed ceiling, now open to the moon. Somewhere nearby, two owls hoot back and forth. The sound is eerie and reverent at once. You pause, then laugh quietly. Maybe they're arguing about scroll content, joke 3. Perfect. The ground under your sandals is uneven. Parts smoothed down by tourists, parts jagged where time has peeled the stone like fruit rind. A soft breeze plays through the arches, brushing the edges of broken steps. It feels like the air is sighing. You close your eyes. For a tiny second, you feel it. The warmth of oil lamps, the chatter of voices, the brush of scrolls being pulled in and out. Studious concentration, debate, insight. And now you feel the silence. The absence of all that. And yet, the place still holds its shape. Like a skull that remembers the brain it once housed. You walk back out into the courtyard. A plaque reads, "Collapsed in an earthquake in the 3rd century." You run your fingers over the etched letters. Then, something else catches your eye. Lying among mismatched stones, half buried under creeping vines, is a small remnant of one of those statues. Maybe a shoulder. Maybe a piece of hem and sandal. Stone carved thousands of years ago, then forgotten, then found. You crouch next to it and whisper, "Which virtue are you?" You get no answer. But it doesn't matter. You stand slowly, stretch your aching back, and step toward the edge of the site. The city is quiet now. The moon hangs low over the distant hills, casting faint shadows among the ruins. You breathe, and for a moment, it feels like the library breathes with you, a rhythm in stone you walk on. One foot in old marble dust, one in modern sand. Your path is lit only by the moon and your own anticipation. You hum to yourself. You've never realized how different sand feels under moonlight. It's colder, finer. It slips between your toes like sifted flour, and each step seems to whisper, "You are somewhere ancient." Your breath flutters with each exhale, fogging faintly in the cool early morning air. The silence is thicker here, so complete it's almost a second presence. You keep walking. You've left Ephesus far behind, and now your path slopes gently downward toward what feels like the belly of the earth. The horizon is soft, ridged with dunes and rock. Ahead, an outline breaks the surface, polygonal, larger than a fortress, its shape unlike anything else you've seen tonight. You recognize the slope of the walls, the stoic silhouette, and the strange shimmer to its stone. You've found it. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus, or what's left of it. Through the sandy haze, the reality of its absence becomes clear. Most of the once dazzling marble has been robbed, repurposed into castles or mansions, or fill on long-lost roads. Some was scavenged by medieval crusaders, and the rest, well, time ate it. But even reduced to foundations and scattered pieces, the mausoleum refuses to die. Like a phoenix, it keeps reconstructing itself in your mind. You step closer. Giant blocks lie scattered around like toppled dominoes from a forgotten immortal game. Each block could have been part of a massive column, or perhaps a statue base. You try to imagine the original structure, over 40 meters tall, crowned by a chariot of marble horses pulling Mausolus himself toward the heavens. That's your mainstream fact. The mausoleum was so iconic, its very name became synonymous with grand tombs across centuries. You imagine its builders, hundreds of hands carving, chiseling, polishing. Craftsmen working by torchlight, creating reliefs of Greek myths and heroic battles that wrapped all the way around its base. You lean forward, brushing away sand with the edge of your hand. A carving peeks through. A lion's flank, maybe part of a battle scene. You whisper, "You've got a better six-pack than I do. Good for you, lion." Joke 1. But honestly, that lion's ribcage is chiseled with insane precision. You walk toward the base. Faint outlines of steps make themselves known. They fan out in broad arcs, forming what used to be a grand staircase leading up to the crypt. You run a hand along the slope. Cold. Almost metallic in the moonlight. You picture Mausolus, not just a satrap, but king in all but title. A ruler loved enough by his queen, Artemisia too, that after he died, she commissioned this wonder. A tomb so massive it felt like a personal dare to time itself. Fringe tidbit. Some say she mixed his ashes with her wine and drank them. Historians still argue whether this was devotion or just a spectacular overreaction. You swallow. At least put some lemon in it. You mutter. Joke 2. The wind shifts, sweeping dust across low rubble. The shapes of headless statues emerge here and there. One, not far from you, leans heavily on a cracked pedestal. The stone torso, sheared at the waist, still holds a shield. You squint at the carving. Traces of curling hair, still visible on the breastplate. Another broken figure nearby seems to have been mid-stride. A warrior or a goddess, frozen in half, step forever. You pace slowly. The remains stretch further than you initially thought. Columns lie like scattered ivory logs. Stone blocks with bored holes, maybe for wooden beams, are trapped in slanted piles. A half-buried sarcophagus corner peeks up, carved, cracked, but unmistakable. And here I am worrying about IKEA assembly. Joke 3. That one sticks with you for a bit. You inhale deeply. Beneath the scent of sand, there's something else, faint. Like old stone dust mixed with forest fire ash. You remember that the mausoleum stood here for centuries, surviving earthquakes, raids, weather, until one series of quakes in the 13th century finally brought it down. Some say it might have survived even those tremors, but only barely, before its marble was hauled away. Historians still debate how much of it collapsed naturally, and how much was dismantled on purpose. You walk until you reach a ridge. The ruins spread out below, the scattered bones of a giant long fallen. But the sky above still holds the outline of what was once imagined. You can almost sketch it there. The layered terraces rising, columns flanking a sacred chamber, statues of charioteers atop. You close your eyes. For a moment you feel warmth. Sunlight. A crowd gathers to watch as sculptors raise a new frieze. Artemisia watches from a shaded balcony, her veil fluttering in the sea breeze. Merchants pass, trading spices and honey. Soldiers march through paved streets. Priests chant for the safe passage of a ruler into eternity. You hover inside the memory. A hazy, borrowed dream. Then a low rumble, just a trick of the wind, no doubt, breaks the illusion. You open your eyes. The moon has dipped lower now. The ruins look older, colder. But something glimmers faintly behind a leaning column. Curiosity wins. You pick your way carefully over fallen stone. A carved block lies partly buried under sand. A horse's head, jaw strong, ears pricked. You freeze, smiling. This could have been part of the grand apex. The four-horse chariot that once crowned the mausoleum. Or maybe just part of an accent frieze. Either way, it's mesmerizing. You sit beside it, leaning back on your hands. The stone holds onto the night's chill, but it's not uncomfortable. You tip your head back and stare at stars that seem more vibrant here. Like someone turned up their glow volume. A thought comes to you, how humans keep trying to beat time. We build big things, beautiful things, sometimes wild, sometimes solemn. But time always comes in, takes what it wants, and leaves enough behind to remind the rest of us, yes, this mattered. You stand finally, brushing sand from behind your knees. Your spine cracks. You sigh. Before heading out, you turn once more toward the broken structure. The faintest line of dawn blushes the horizon. Pale pink. Soft gold. You exhale, nod silently to Mausolus and Artemisia. You turn to leave. But as you walk, you catch something strange out of the corner of your eye. Tall shadow, thin, flickering. You stop. A figure stands near that broken lion carving you admired earlier. Cloaked. Motionless. You blink. Gone just your imagination, maybe. You shake it off. Every ruin feels haunted, eventually. You walk toward the dark silhouette of the ridge again. A stronger breeze kicks dust across your ankles. You taste salt. It must be blowing in from the sea. And somewhere deep in your bones, you feel the mausoleum let go of one last breath of its ancient story. You keep walking, slow grounding, half dazed, still marveling at how even ruin can feel grand. Your next step finds firmer ground. Then another. The sand softens behind you. A narrow path winds forward, waiting. You know what comes next. Another shadow. Another memory of stone. You stroke the back of your own hand. It's cold, even though the sky has started to warm. You whisper, "Let's see what waits on the other side." Your footsteps carry you toward a faint murmur. A sound softer than wind, less rhythmic than ocean waves. Something floral rides the air. Sweet. Impossible. Your pace slows, confused but intrigued. Ancient ruins never smell like this. The horizon gives way to something surreal. A shimmering vertical shape rises, blurred by distance, ornamented with cascading shadows. Towering steps. Terraces. No, not stone this time. Greenery. Even at night, the scent of blooming life seems to glow. You hold your breath and begin to descend into a shallow valley. Before you, bathed in moonlight, lies a place that shouldn't exist. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. You blink, once, twice. You look away. Look back, it's still there. Tiered terraces stacked upon each other, lush with leaves. Vines, branches. Streams of water spill down carved channels, glistening like celestial silver threads. Moonlight clings to every droplet. It feels unreal. Like a mirage conjured from all the whispers and doubts you've ever heard about it. Because yes, mainstream fact, no archaeological proof has ever confirmed the gardens existed, and yet here they are. You take a few steps forward. The air is rich with moisture. A warm wind brushes your forehead, brushing away the dry sand of Halicarnassus in an instant. Maybe this really is a mirage, you think. But somehow, it feels real enough to breathe. You raise a hand and inspect a leaf drooping from a vine nearby. You brush its surface. It's cool, soft. You turn your palm upward. The leaf rests gently between your fingertips. A drop of water falls onto your knuckle. And just like that, doubt starts to crumble like the old stones behind you. Somewhere deep inside the garden, something thrums. A low mechanical rhythm, almost like a wheel turning. You smile, remembering the theory the gardens were supposedly built by Nebuchadnezzar II for his homesick wife, Ametis, who missed the green mountains of her homeland. To keep the plants alive in dry Babylon, ancient engineers may have constructed a water lifting system, possibly an early version of a chain pump powered by slaves or animals. You hear it now, a steady churning. You walk toward the first terrace. Your sandals squish on damp clay tiles. Sprays of mint lavender and something rich like jasmine brush against your calves. A path curves ahead, lit intermittently by lantern sconces burning a soft blue flame. You lean close. No wick, just a lump of glowing glass-like material. A trick of the mind. Or some lost Mesopotamian invention. Fringe tidbit unlocked. Certain fringe historians believe Babylon experimented with ternal lamps, some kind of chemical mixture that burned for years without refueling. Historians still argue whether these lamps ever existed outside myth. You touch one, no burn. Just a curious warmth. You take a mental note to Google that later, if later ever happens again. You climb the first flight of stone steps. Vines wrap their way up the balustrades. A small stream spills down one side, shimmering like liquid moon. The bricks beneath your feet are arranged in organic curves. You've never seen architecture this alive. You follow the water's descent until you catch another glimpse of moving shadow. A woman with dark braids appears briefly, curved clay pot on her hip. She hums, long, melodic. You freeze. She dips the pot into a basin carved into the wall, whispers something in a language you don't quite recognize, and continues down the steps in the opposite direction. She doesn't notice you at all. So, a ghost. Or just a replay of something ancient. Hard to say. Night shifts are weird. You keep climbing. Each level smells different. Bottom terrace is basil, thyme, wild grass. Middle terrace, jasmine, roses, figs. You reach a platform ringed by stone columns and step into a cooling mist. Over in a shallow stone trough, you spot fresh pomegranate seeds glistening beside ceramic cups. Someone has recently set a tray there. You pick up a seed. Roll it between thumb and forefinger. Its juice stains your nail slightly pink. You hesitate. Probably won't kill me, you say softly, and then pop it in your mouth. A burst of sweet, tart flavor spreads across your tongue. You sigh. You didn't realize how hungry you were. Joke 1. If this is afterlife hospitality, I rate it 5 stars. You pause at a carved relief along the wall. It shows a royal couple. Bearded man in regal robes, headdress with horns like a bull. Beside him, a woman dressed in layers of loose cloth, eyes soft and forward. You touch the carving gently. Nebuchadnezzar and Amytis. So much of the world remembers only him. But the gardens, they were hers. Her longing made this place a love letter you could walk through. Wind rustles leaves overhead with a sigh. Water trickles nearby. Ahead, a stone platform opens into a grand view. You step near its edge and gasp. Below you, Babylon unfurls. Ziggurat rising in the distance. Sandstone walls dotted with torchlight. The Euphrates curling through the city like a dark blue serpent. The stars overhead glint off golden rooftops. You hear faint singing, as if from riverboats drifting unseen through canals. You lean your hands on the stone ledge. It's warm. You laugh softly. This place doesn't exist, and yet, here we are. Joke 2. But seriously, here we are. You look down. Beneath the terraces, near the base of the garden, you see statues. Stone lions guarding entrances. Reliefs of winged bulls. Even a sphinx-like form halfway collapsed. Symbols of forgotten gods. Blended styles. A cultural melting pot of millennia past. You begin to walk again, hands grazing leaves as you move up to the highest terrace. The air grows thicker, charged. A low hum radiates beneath your feet. It feels like a giant heartbeat. Maybe it's the machinery, or perhaps just the distant memory of a city that once lived and breathed. At the terrace's center, you find a pool. Small, circular, bordered by ceramic tiles with patterns of copper and malachite. You kneel beside it and look in. Your reflection is faintly distorted, but you're not alone. Behind you, reflected in the water, stands a woman. Eyes dark, expression gentle. She doesn't move. You turn, quickly, but she's gone. Your shoulders tremble slightly. Cold air grazes your spine. But you stay. You look back into the pool. Tiny fish dart through reflections of vines and stars. Life continues. You smile again. Some ghost stories write themselves. You say under your breath. Joke 3. You lean back and look at the sky. Somehow, it feels closer up here. The moon, now a softer gold, floats overhead like a silent guardian. You lie down on warm stone. Leaves rustle beside your ear. You take a deep breath. This place has always been part rumor, part dream. You're living that dream now. Your body knows it. Your heartbeat slows, you matching the rhythm beneath the ground. You place your arms behind your head and stare up into infinity. Historians still argue whether this wonder even existed. That's your scholarly debate phrase. Whether it was really built by Nebuchadnezzar Hugh, or maybe, just maybe, it was a poetic creation by Greek writers who wanted to imagine Babylon as something more than a giant brick furnace. You smile. You kind of hope it was both. You let your eyes close for a moment. The hush around you is thick and alive. Your thoughts drift. You think of all the wonders so far. How they break. How they stay. What traces they leave in us. You open your eyes again. The sky is brighter now. Dawn is coming. You slowly rise, brushing dirt off your clothes. You take one more lingering look around. You don't want to wake the ghosts. You whisper a soft thank you to the warmth, the water, the impossible greenery. Then you turn to leave. The narrow stairs lead back down through archways of flowering vines. With each downward step, the fragrance fades a little. The rhythm of energy quiets. Soon, all that's left is the sound of your own breathing and the gentle crunch of gravel underfoot. You reach the edge of the terraces and step back onto dry earth. Grass gives way to silt, then sand, then rocky soil. You turn once more. The garden seems to shimmer, almost receding into itself, a mirage folding up. Then finally it's gone. You're alone again, standing on empty ground. You exhale slowly. Somewhere out there, your next wonder waits in the ruins. The sky behind you glows faintly with leftover starlight. The last fading hues of night stretched thin across water. You've left Babylon's mirage behind, though a whisper of its greenery still clings to your skin like dew. Your path dips and rises gently across dunes until you crest a low ridge and smell salt. The sea awakens before you like a patient leviathan, stretching endlessly beneath a soft blanket of grey dawn. But there, slicing through the water like a sentinel, is something not even the sea has managed to swallow. A tower, broken, but monumental still. You narrow your eyes as the wind shifts, carrying the briny breath of the Mediterranean. A low ruin juts out from the edge of a small island, stone angling upward in uneven slabs, leading to the remains of a cylindrical base. You stop. Your pulse quickens. Even worn down to its bones, it's unmistakable. The Lighthouse of Alexandria, Pharos. You inhale sharply. For a moment, it feels like the past flashes over your vision, washing the ruins in white light. A pulse echoes deep in your ribs. This was once the tallest man-made structure in the world, almost 100 meters high. That's your mainstream fact. It guided sailors across the bay, a literal star on Earth, visible for miles, even during storms, a beacon of safety. And now, just shattered stone rolling waves, and one very stunned traveler. Akayu. You take a cautious step forward over jagged rocks. Sand gathers in sheltered crevices like pale dust in forgotten corners of a library. Seabirds, gulls, circle overhead and dive into the frothy water. Their caws slice through the hush of early morning. You pause, crack a smile. Imagine building the biggest flashlight ever, and not having a backup battery. Joke 1. It helps settle the flutter in your chest. You approach the ruin. A narrow spit of land bridges the mainland to the edge of the island. When you step onto it, spray erupts from a wave hitting the side of the foundation. Your ankles tingle. You run your hand along a chunk of stone. The surface is rough, coarse with salt and wind erosion. A few faint carvings persist. Greek lettering chiseled deep into the facade. You trace one with your finger. The engraving reads something like "For Egypt." "For the sea, for the gods." You swallow. The dawn light shifts, a sheen of gold glowing over the horizon. You squint, and your breath catches again. There, along the crumbled wall, a small fire burns. You blink. Not a blazing fire, just a compact flame burning steady on a metal bowl. No wind disturbs it. No smoke rises. The bowl sits atop a carved stone platform amid the fallen blocks, shielded by a low crescent of leaning marble. You approach slowly. The flame flickers quietly. You feel your pulse sink to the motion of it. A memory from somewhere between dream and history stirs. Ancient writings about how pharaohs may have used polished bronze mirrors to reflect firelight during the night. Some claim it could be seen from far, far away. Fringe fact alert. There's a legend that the lighthouse's reflective beam could burn enemy ships. Historians still argue whether that's truth or just the propaganda of jealous enemies. You sit beside the bowl. Warmth radiates subtly, despite the morning's chill. You lean closer. The fire's fuel looks strange. Dense, pearlescent pieces that remind you of some kind of resin. You bite your lip. Another ancient trick, maybe. You look around, no sign of anyone. You raise one eyebrow. Well, if someone rigged this centuries ago, it's got a better lifespan than my phone charger. Joke 2. You stand and gaze up at the massive stones that used to form the lighthouse walls. Each one is taller than you, stacked in a complex jigsaw that now lies half collapsed into the sea. Some chunks appear scorched, dark flecks burnt into their surface, lightning damage, fire, or just salt and time carving scars into stone. You walk around the tower's remains, stepping over broken stair fragments and leaning against a toppled pillar. It's quiet here. Too quiet. The kind of stillness that feels heavy, but not unwelcome. You close your eyes and try to imagine what it once looked like. The lighthouse, Pharos, was originally built under Ptolemy Temple. 3 tiers wide square foundation, octagonal mid-layer, cylindrical top. A statue stood at the highest point, probably Zeus or Poseidon. You picture bright, burning flames, silvered mirror plates reflecting light further than anyone thought possible. Then an earthquake. Several, actually. Over centuries they chipped away at Pharos' strength. Finally, around the 14th century, the last major tremor reduced it to rubble. Some of its stones were reused to build Citadel of Cape Bay, which still stands today. Your eyes snap open. There, through a gap in the remaining structure, you spot part of that citadel. Statues watch from distant battlements, and for a moment, you feel the strange continuum of architecture. Light turned to stone. Stone turned to fortress. You sit back, rest your elbows on your knees. Breath deep and long. A shadow moves. You stand quickly. Near the base of the ruins, where the seawater laps the steps, you see a figure, cloaked in a garment like layered linen. Silent, dark, they hold a bronze mirror in one hand, and raise it slightly. Light catches the surface, flickering for a second in your direction. You freeze. A second later, the figure lowers it, then disappears. You blink hard. What is it with ancient sights and stealthy side characters? Joke 3. It steadies you. You check your pulse. It's a bit fast, but you don't feel scared. If anything, you feel oddly seen, almost welcomed. You step toward the water. Near one half-submerged stone, you notice something. Letters, etched deep in Greek. You crouch, hand brushing moss away. It reads, "Let light endure, even where walls break." Your throat feels tight. You inhale. Exhale. Slowly, you rise. You walk back to the fire. You watch it quietly for a few breaths. It never wavers. You wonder what fuels it. You whisper into the air. "Still here, huh? I guess the Egyptians really knew how to make things last." A breeze rustles past your ear and touches your cheek. Light as a hand. You smile to yourself. One last look. Then you dip your fingers into the sea. Salt water laps your skin. Coral. Alive. You stand. Shake off the water. Turn away from Pharos. Then pause and look back. Even in ruin, even shattered, it still feels like a guardian of coast and cosmos. You take one last deep breath and set off again. Your sandals scrape over shell fragments as you climb back to the ridge. The sky is now fully wound with sunrise. Pink, then gold, then sharp brilliance. The day has arrived. You stretch your arms, feeling the first warmth of light on your neck. One more wander down. One more breadcrumb in the trail of stone and story. You smile. Squint toward the horizon. Somewhere ahead lies another lesson in grandeur. And another taste of how empires try to last forever. You start walking. The warm pulse of daylight gently wraps around your shoulders as you walk, leaving the salty breath of Pharos behind. Your legs move steadily now, almost automatically, as though some ancient compass has taken hold inside your chest. The sea falls away behind you, replaced by softly rolling plains, scattered with stones like abandoned chess pieces. The air grows drier. Warm breezes slip past your face laden with the faint scent of olive groves and something vaguely metallic. Maybe bronze. Maybe old blood. You shudder, push past that thought, and climb a hill with the calm resignation of someone who's already walked through time, attended a ghost lecture, and eaten a phantom pomegranate. One more ruin isn't going to faze you now. At the top of the ridge, The grainy glow of daylight lands on the shape below. You blink slowly, as if your eyes are still tuning into this new wavelength of ancient memory. Below you lies a vast circular arena, sunken into the earth, partly reclaimed by nature, yet unmistakably the ancient temple of Zeus at Olympia. Though not much remains of its once towering structure, the site spreads wide across a carpet of grass and broken marble. You've arrived at the birthplace of a god. Or at least, the place where humans tried their best to put one on display. You stand still for a moment, wind brushing your hair, listening to the subtle hush of the valley. Imagine it pillars rising tall, gleaming with ivory and gold. In the center stood the statue, your next target, Zeus, seated majestic and terrifying in size, 12 meters tall, gleaming with gold plates, ivory skin, and eyes that watched history. That's your mainstream fact. The statue of Zeus at Olympia was one of the seven wonders. And it was so awe-inspiring that the ancient historian Pausanias reportedly said it seems to add something to the established religion. So much does it strike awe in all who behold it. You take a few steps forward, the sun warming your neck. Grass whispers as you move between pillars, crumbled bases, scattered like molars fallen from the jaws of time. A broken torch rests on the ground, carved from marble, lying beside a half-buried plaque. You kneel, brush dirt away, read the faint inscription. For the games, for the god, for the glory. You take a deep breath and exhale slowly. You suddenly grin. If he was watching the games, Zeus probably screamed at the ref more than anyone. Joke 1. You stand again and move deeper into the site. The stadium looms nearby. An ancient athletics track carved into the field, marked still by simple stone posts. The grass is soft under your sandals. You remember the trivia. You once read that the Olympic Games were originally held here as a religious festival. Athletes competed naked, covered in olive oil. Fringe fact, some claim athletes even used ground-up crocodile dung as sunscreen. Historians still argue whether that was practical or just wildly unsanitary. You shake your head. Imagine explaining that skincare routine to a modern dermatologist. Joke 2. You move toward what remains of the temple's inner chamber. A few stout columns still stand. Massive drums of stone, some cracked, but still holding their own weight. You lay a hand against one and feel the cool solidity of ancient marble. And then you see it. Inside the broken foundations, sitting slightly crooked on the toppled foot of a pedestal, lies a fragment, ivory, white, shining faintly. The remains of Zeus's robe. No, too abstract. You kneel, lean in, and stroke its surface lightly. It's part of a statue, a curled lock of hair, carved in smooth, intricate detail. You swallow. This hair once framed a face towering above thousands. Your heartbeat quickens. And then, you hear something. A brushing sound, like sandal against stone. You freeze. You glance sideways. A figure stands beneath one of the remaining columns. Tall, heavily built, draped in a regal tunic embroidered with faint golden lines. His face, oddly timeless, sharp eyes. He turns slowly to meet your gaze. No words, just a nod. You don't nod back. You blink, half expecting the vision to disappear. He steps forward, crosses his arms, then gestures toward the ground. Toward you. Toward the statue fragment. You say nothing. Because what could you possibly say to a spectral craftsman? Or a god? The wind stirs. A bird cries in the distant canopy. Then, you blink once more. He's gone. You rise slowly, heart pounding. Yep, definitely due for a nap at this point. Joke 3. It lands sort of. Comic relief for your own nerves. You stand where he was a moment ago. Turn slowly. In the brightening daylight, Olympia looks different. Larger. More alive. You see where the statue stood, like an imprint in the earth. You step inside that phantom footprint softly. You close your eyes. You imagine the moment. Torches blazing, priests chanting, a towering figure of ivory and gold rising above a crowd of believers. Skin glowing like dried sunlight, beard curling like carved thunderclouds. Zeus, holding victory in one hand, a scepter in the other, sitting calmly, yet enormously, on a carved throne with intricate reliefs of Greek myths flanking his knees. You catch your breath, open your eyes. The empty earth stares back at you. It's peaceful, cool, and absolutely broken. You find yourself thinking, why build something this grand just to let it dissolve? But that's the lesson of these wonders, isn't it? Time eats glory, death eats gods, and yet, we still build. We still remember. You make your way toward a set of toppled columns that once framed the temple's entrance. You sit for a moment on a smooth slab. The air is quiet. A faint scent of olives drifts by. You glance down and notice something at the base of the stone. A stylized carving of an eagle. Talons spread, wings lifted, but face weathered away. Zeus a symbol. A reminder that even now, after storms, wars, and fire, something remains. You whisper softly, guess even gods shed feathers. You smile. You don't want this stop to end just yet. It's so still. You stay a bit longer, watching wind play in grass, listening to cicadas announce their presence as the day warms. Then finally, you stand up, dust off your legs. You walk toward the edge of the site, where the grass gives way to bare earth. You turn, hands in your pockets, and nod, softly and respectfully, to the void where once Zeus sat in all his oversized glory. You begin to walk again, leaving the temple behind, moving toward a grove of olive trees that seem to part for your steps. With each footfall, you feel lighter, as if you've left something of yourself there in that broken chamber of stone and sky. Good. That's the trade ruins ask of us. You walk forward, ready for whatever waits just beyond the trees. There's one more wonder to find, one last invitation from the ancient world. You smile, then you keep going. The olive grove stretches out like a dreamscape, painted in muted greens and soft gold. You step beneath the shimmering leaves, where fragments of sunlight spill lazily onto the soil. Each footstep feels lighter now, almost buoyant. Maybe it's the ancient psychic resonance you've accumulated. Or maybe it's just that you've walked so far that your muscles have just given up complaining. You follow a meandering dirt path, marked occasionally by a cracked chunk of marble half swallowed by the earth. Here and there, old terracotta shards poke through like forgotten bones. The air shifts as you move deeper, becoming warmer, almost humid. You run a hand through the low, hanging branches and feel beads of moisture gathering along your skin. You press on. Suddenly, the trees thin. Light blooms, bright and startling. And you stop dead still. Ahead lies a vast courtyard flooded in sunlight. Carved stone steps rise in sweeping arcs. Vines and moss tangle around thick pillars. But these aren't crumbled ruins like those before. They're intact, massive, towering over you in columns of bleached, white marble. And at the far end, perfectly framed in a curtain of green, stands a building. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus. You blink slowly. This isn't the flat foundation you've seen in photographs, the empty outline archaeologists study. This is the temple hall, standing, breathing, as if time has decided to reverse course toward you. Your chest tightens as you step forward. The perimeter is ringed by more than 100 ionic columns, each one the width of an ancient oak. They rise like ancient giants, carved with friezes of figures and beasts you've only ever seen in stylized museum plaques. The base is massive, 4 steps deep, painted with faded scenes of huntsmen and deer. You spot a wide, curved entrance, propped open by 2 towering doors of weathered bronze. And there, at the threshold, set against the grand interior, a towering statue. You feel the breath leave your lungs. It's Artemis. She stands poised, serene, an ancient matron adorned with rows of mysterious symbols and spheres, animals perched beside her feet. Her face is calm, unblinking, utterly ancient. You can't take your eyes off her. This is the one that keeps rewriting itself. You murmur. The Temple of Artemis had been built and rebuilt several times, and burned down more than once. The most infamous torchbearer, a man named Herostratus, who set fire to the temple just to become famous. His name was banned from being spoken, so he wouldn't gain notoriety. Didn't work. We remember him anyway. I can't decide if that's horribly tragic or deeply on brand for human nature. You say, stepping further in. You move quietly beneath the columns, each carved with reliefs of battle scenes, animals, gods. The ceiling looms high, dappled in soft gold leaf, cracked and aging but still impossibly grand. Inside, the air is thick and cool. A slight scent of incense lingers, like a memory trapped in stone. You approach the statue. It is enormous, almost the height of Zeus, but less imposing, more enigmatic. You step close, tracing one of the many round symbols embedded along her chest. Some say they represent breasts, a charm of fertility. Others swore they were symbols of divine connection, representing the cosmic order. One scholar even theorized they were bull testicles. You snort. Honestly, the ancient fashion scene was wild. Gods really could wear anything. You circle around her. The pedestal holds faded etchings, records of offerings gifted by wealthy patrons. Names you can't read, languages you never learned. Then, a sound, soft, almost curious. A faint chime, like metal on stone. You freeze. You turn. A woman stands near one of the pillars, hair bound in cloth, hands clasped in front. She tilts her head toward you. She whispers something in Greek or something older. You don't understand the words, but her tone is earnest, informative, welcoming. She gestures around the temple. You swallow, and then, like a gust of wind, she's gone. You sit slowly beside the base of the statue. You feel a strange calm settle over you. The quiet invitation of a temple still alive in ghostly memory. You let your hand rest on cool marble. You close your eyes, listen to the discarding of centuries. Somewhere in your mind, you hear an echo of ancient prayer. You imagine thousands walking up these steps, clutching offerings. You imagine flames in bronze bowls, loud chants, silk garments brushing against stone. You open your eyes. The temple flickers, columns shimmer. A few cracks appear, then vanish. You stand. Back away slowly. Before you go, you bow your head, with genuine reverence, to the statue of Artemis. Then you turn. You take one last look, trying to memorize every detail before your mind instinctively begins to sand down the magic into something logical, something explainable. You leave the temple behind. As you exit the courtyard, the air shifts, the humidity dissolving back into arid warmth. You blink. The columns behind you are just scattered bases again. Grass and ruins. You sigh, let your shoulders slump. That's two gods who've stared me down today. I need a snack. Between the columns, an unexpected sight catches your eye, a single olive branch, intricately braided with wildflowers, lying along a step. You pause. You pick it up. Knot it through your belt. A small souvenir from the goddess of the hunt. Up ahead, you see a dusty trail rising over the horizon. Just beyond that, sensory instinct tells you something enormous waits. Last wonder. You breathe. All right then, let's finish this. And you walk.